Hi all, I'm Eric from Team Sakura, and today we are in the Lubricant Lounge, and I'm here with the 3 TSE founders today.
We can't go with this name. This name can't stick.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it's the Lubricant Lounge.
It's my house.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the Lubricant Lounge, everyone. That's
Okay.
sticking now.
We're here to do sort of like a podcast debrief something.
It's basically here's what we've been doing in the run up to whatever event you'll be watching this for.
It's more content for you, the viewer.
Wow, crazy. Watch our content though. It's basically like Matt said, what we get up to the event, how we think the event went, just a little casual chat about what happened.
Yes, of sorts.
Nothing particularly crazy. We've got Eric with some supposed notes on his phone to
Whose
figure it
entire
out.
job is to stop us rambling for like 5 hours.
James,
No promises.
right. What's first up on the topics then?
Well, the first one on the topic is I want to talk about the new car that we've been seeing on the social media a lot recently.
Whoa.
How exactly did TSE get hold of the car, and what exactly is it?
Well,
That's
that's on me, I suppose. So it's one of my dad's cars. It's a Gardner Douglas T70. I assume we'll insert.
I'll do
image of
something.
car here,
Yeah.
yes.
Actually, there's a nice spot there in the middle. It'll probably appear there.
It's a Gardner Douglas T70. It has a 5.7 Chevy motor in the back. Imagine essentially an Altima, but prettier. Sorry, Altima.
He has a point though.
So yeah, big American V8 in the middle, Porsche 5-speed box, full manual, 3 pedals, very analog. It's meant to be sort of reminiscent of a 60s Lola T70. So the livery on ours especially is meant to be very similar to the 66 Surtees car that won Can-Am. So that was sort of in my dad's collection, and we mentioned that we were starting up Team Sakura, and he said to us, would it be a good bit of PR for you if we ran that car at Time Attack? And we said, yes, absolutely.
Hell
it
yes,
would.
please.
Because funnily enough, the really big V8 and a pretty car would go down well.
Especially at Time Attack, where it's full of little 4-cylinder engines with turbos and supers.
Yeah, it's all small
not.
stuff. Even the really quick stuff is 4-cylinder stuff. So seeing anything with more than 4 is pretty unusual. So.
Yeah.
It went down pretty well, and the car went well all day, but we'll get on to that
We'll get
in a
on to
minute.
it.
So how long ago did we acquire the car, mate?
So my dad got it in 2016, and we acquired it on my driveway about 5 weeks ago.
As
I
of
feel like it was
recording.
less than that.
About right, yeah.
Four
Feels
or
like
5 weeks ago.
I think 4. What was
Yeah.
it? It was... Which Grand Prix was it that we got it? So we got it the same weekend as a Grand Prix. Was it?
It was the Hungarian. wasn't
Hungarian
it?
Grand Prix.
Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
Exact
I'll put a
date
date
stamp
on
for
the
you.
Funny
The
McLaren political one.
the date of the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Will appear here, yes.
So James and I went up in a borrowed van and collected it in the trailer.
The van was brilliant.
It took 4 hours to get the trailer out of the yard.
Oh, I don't want to relive that.
It's a big old trailer.
I wasn't there,
Yeah,
so I
very
can
annoying
smile
space.
smugly.
Yes.
Likewise.
We drove it home in the dark, got back, unloaded it, as you'll see at the start of the YouTube video that we have covering our adventures with the car. And then we've been working on it, sort of tinkering away with it ever since.
Do you want to talk about the development then, James? Pete?
I mean, there isn't really much development, honestly, because the car is basically a finished package. It's mostly just what can we do to make it run faster.
95% of it was legality stuff. So
Yeah.
when we got it, the harness was so we have to have a FIA spec harness and seat, even if they're not in date. That's not important, but it has to be of FIA homologation. So had to replace the harness because that had no homologation sticker on it. Likewise for the seat. New fire extinguisher because the old one was old and I think too small, and I think the wrong amount of nozzles for a plumbed into system.
Yeah.
What else was there? To bleed the brakes.
It was mostly like MOT check kind of stuff, but then and legality. So for the viewer, a bit of clarification. The car has existed since about 2006 when the first owner finished building it. And since it's existed, the only thing it's ever done has been relatively chill track days and a bit of road driving. So
it was built as a track day car.
Yeah.
Before it was
Yeah,
race
you
day.
took it to Le Mans, right?
yeah,
Back
so
in the day.
my dad road registered it when he bought it. We did the big pilgrimage to Le Mans in 2017,
Pretty cool.
which was one of the best weeks of my life. So the car, perfectly legal for the road, perfectly legal for a normal track day. but there's that elevated sort of level of legality and safety needed when you're doing a proper sort of sanctioned race event. So we had to do, like James said, fire extinguisher harness and so on. Just to
Arm
get through those.
restraints, yeah.
Yeah, and
You love those, don't you?
We love arm restraints.
He hates them now. He's never
well-
used them before. Now he really doesn't want to use them.
I've driven lots of open top stuff, but the new arm restraints they've added to the rules are not friendly.
I think they've been in the rules for a while. It's just I don't think you've raced anything with.
It's just for open top stuff to make sure that if you do have a slight oopsie, your arms don't go wee out the
It's
top
not
like a
generally
roller
too great if your arm
coaster.
flies out and gets crushed under your roll hoop. Not great.
It's
for your
normally
arm.
not nice, yeah.
But we've done quite a few things to the car in terms of like practicality stuff. I know that me and you, James, have done the seat, for example.
Yeah, the seat. I haven't done a seat like that in like 3 or 4 years, and last time I was helping.
So for the viewer, me and James got some expanding foam and we custom made a seat over the last 2 weeks.
Memory serves, it was SFI rated expanding foam, so it's perfectly good for use in seats. And you basically just stick a bag in the car, fill it with foam, sit whoever's driving in there, molds perfectly to body, cut it to whatever size works. So like if you had like harness, like crotch straps, you cut a hole there, etc., etc. Trim it as needed. So we did it in Nomex fabric, which tariff was the cost of which was much higher than I remember it being. Then that went in the car rather nicely.
You did also buy far more than was necessary.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've got spare.
you bought like 3 meters of it or something, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I just,
Which
yeah,
is a
because in my
ridiculous
mind,
amount.
3 linear meters wasn't that much. And then I took it out of the box and was like, oh, that's a lot.
Oh my God.
That's a lot of fabric. Then realised that was folded in half, so it got even worse. Although it means I've got enough to do.
Other
We'll talk
seats.
about
Yeah.
what that could be used on later, but there's.
Now we have a
something.
perfect moulding of Matt's rear end and the word Sparko from
Yeah.
his race suit in the
Yeah,
back
the
of the
race
foam.
suit, the race suit branding, it sort of pressed itself into the expanding foam, which was quite funny.
Yeah.
Sadly, not visible after the Nomex was put on, but
The other bits and pieces we had to do were on a Saturday before the race day. James and I, not the Saturday before the Sunday, thank goodness, we replaced the springs and cleaned the shocks
yeah,
off.
my main thing is doing setup work, so it's these different springs, you need to have the stability, I did all the dampers, alignment, yada yada yada, all the kind of stuff
And
I was
then-
doing for teams.
Little quality of life things for me driving. So
New wheel.
yeah, the car came to us with the most 2006 kit car steering wheel ever
Giant
possibly
thing,
imagined.
yeah.
Yeah, that was way too big and really,
Looked really silly.
awkward.
So we got an adapter plate from B&G.
Yeah, it's BG Racing.
Yeah.
Love your work, by the way.
Yeah.
Lovely bits of kit.
Not sponsored, but hit us up.
Yeah, so we're sponsored by these people. If anyone else wants to be on this list, please do apply.
Please show, we happily accept things.
Give us money. No.
Cut that out in the edit. Oh wait, you're editing. Oh no!
Does he know?
But yeah, so we got a lovely adapter plate to adapt it to a smaller 3-pin steering wheel. So we used the one out of my Sports 1000 prototype. We also changed the gear knob to one from Mishimoto. Thank you, Mishimoto. And
It was from this old sort of suddy, raggedy.
Yeah.
again, peak mid-noughties kit
Yeah, I mean, it
car,
had-
aluminium top.
Yeah, like it's been on there 18 years. It's seen a bit of life. It doesn't look as nice as it did when we got it. So.
The main thing that was changed was the tyres. The
Yeah.
tyres were.
Fronts though.
There is a whole story surrounding the
big
tyres.
story.
And
So-
I feel like for political reasons we shouldn't get into the story
We
too
shouldn't get
much on camera.
We're not going to discuss exactly why the tyres were a problem due to reasons.
Like the short version
Yeah,
of it was
the tyres
they
were of drinking age.
Yeah.
The tyres were 18 years old.
They were Toyota R888s, which finished being made in, if my tyre history serves me well, 2015 or 2016.
Which already makes them out of
Which
date.
already makes them, like the AAA will tell you 7, I think it's
7 years.
double A, isn't it?
Double A.
Yeah, double A, not AAA. Where did I get that from?
AA gives you 7 years.
They say 7 years, and that's more than most manufacturers tend to say, which is like 5 years.
Because
So
road use doesn't really rag your tyres.
yeah,
so.
you just get material. Material fatigue is a thing. People forget that a lot, especially on rubber. Rubber goes really sensitive to it. So the fronts were drinking age. The rears were 16 years old. And we were sort of looking at those telling, please no. So we got lovely Nanking AR1s are fitted last Monday, so that would have been, what, the 12th?
Yeah,
With
so
the event being the 18th?
the Monday,
lovely.
the Monday of race week, I drove to Demon Tweaks because they're only 40 minutes away, I've done 4 visits there in the last 2 weeks to get bits and pieces for the car.
We're very cuddly with them now, aren't
Yes.
Yeah.
Drove up there on the Monday before the race weekend and had some AR1s fitted. They're quite big AR1s. They are 335 width rears and 255 fronts.
we?
Which,
They're about...
quite
They are
mighty.
enormous.
so it's over a foot wide at the rear, each tyre. And that alone caused quite a stir at Time Attack. I remember being in the group chat. There's a big WhatsApp group chat for Time Attack. And I put a picture of the stack of tyres ready to go on the car. And everyone was just like, what is this? What are these tyres?
So what manner of thing we got?
Yeah.
Little did they know.
Yeah, we were causing a stir at Time Attack before we even showed up, and then we caused even more of a one just while we were unloading.
By setting car alarms off as the V8 revved up.
Yes, like starting it set off car alarms, which
I think if we're getting onto this topic, we might as well talk about
Yeah, should we
how
just-
the
yeah,
weekend
Yeah,
went.
well, yeah, I mean, we'll get onto the weekend. We didn't really know what to expect from the car, honestly. Like, we had a good idea.
I do a lot of lap time simulation and stuff, so I had a pretty good idea of the times it would do, but even then I have no setup data for that car.
Matt hasn't raced in 3 years.
He hasn't
Yeah.
raced in 3 years, so I had to reset
We had a
it.
representative time from Gardner Douglas themselves, who did actually come down to support us and
Yeah.
watch
Yes,
us,
it
which
was
was
good.
very nice.
It was
of them.
quite nice to be visited by that. It felt like a bit of
Yeah.
honour.
So Andy from Garden Douglas, who is Mr. Garden Douglas really, he gave me a representative lap time of about 1:16 that a T70's done before around Donington on Toyo R888. So we're on slightly better tyres with a slightly better prepped car in race conditions rather than a track day full of anyone and everyone.
Yeah, it was me doing setup work, and it's something I've done for a very, very long time. I technically started doing setup work when I was a 4-year-old child, so I've had a while.
Yeah, well, like Pete said, we didn't really know what to expect because
Lots of variables, you know.
yeah, and we hadn't had any testing time. So we got the car, we couldn't
There was-
really afford to
There
go
was-
on a track
it was
day.
like
So.
that, and we sort of didn't have the time to get
No.
it. Like to get it prepped well, it was either prep it properly or have the test day.
Yeah,
The former was the better decision. in
Yeah,
hindsight,
it's a
I'd
much
say
better
still.
decision.
Because
So-
it's not a weird car with a lot of new things. If it was a lot of new things, I'd probably push for the testing.
We
more.
knew roughly what the car was capable of. It was just whether
Yeah,
it was going to achieve that
Yeah.
on the day.
I had plenty of figures in my mind.
yeah. So
The main point of the day, honestly, was just one big PR maneuver to have this really strange thing in relation to the rest of the Time Attack paddock, which is full of 4-cylinder inline. Like,
Yeah.
And also just to generally just have a bit of fun as well.
Yeah,
Because
so-
we've
so-
not been racing since Donington last year.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically the 1 year anniversary of us racing as a team prior to being a business formed.
Yeah.
So we last year we ran our MX-5, which will appear eventually here when we're done with it.
We'll be making stuff about the development process.
Yeah, that car will
hopefully.
appear because that's
So-
kind of that's my baby basically.
yeah. We have already filmed a video with that car, but we're holding it off until we make more progress with that car, so we can kind of give it to you in a more
Because that was
Complete
ep-
stay.
episodic
Yeah,
layout rather
because-
than one now and the next one in like 6 months time.
yeah, because we filmed the original stuff in March,
Yeah.
Something like that.
so give or take March.
And we filmed some stuff like last year, I think,
a little bit with last year
when
yeah.
I was at your place.
Yeah, so as you could tell, if we gave it to you now, you'd get something and then you'd be waiting too long.
it will be a fat cliffhanger.
Yeah, and
Um,
the algorithm doesn't like that.
Yeah, the
so-
YouTube algorithm wouldn't be happy, and all hail the algorithm.
Yeah, all hell the algorithm.
Yeah, I love YouTube. So we got to the track day. We set off the car alarm as we wheeled it out of the trailer. I laugh maniacally in the background of the video. As
You just
as
sound
will
like a
hear.
villain. It's great.
Thank you. Hire me to do your villain monologues. I'm British as well.
Evil genius Peter Stern.
True.
All I remember of that was swinging it around as I was rolling it into the back of the garage on Saturday night. I looked to my left, and every single garage to my left, someone was poking their head out the side.
Thinking,
And
what
so
the hell
There
is
also
that?
was the other way. I think half the paddock was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, so we got there, dumped all our stuff. We kidnapped. No, we made James sleep in the garage.
Yeah,
we left the engineering gremlin there overnight.
Yeah, I wanted to because I knew my memory is absolutely appalling, so I wanted it to be a case of if I suddenly thought to myself, I've forgotten to do something, instead of having to remember that until the morning, I'd roll out then.
That's his excuse for wanting to sleep very close to the car.
Yeah, in this case, I think I was sandwiched between the front of the car with its nose off and the front door of the garage.
Yes.
Which was actually surprisingly comfortable, very noisy though. There was a pipe next to me that was making a lot of a racket.
Someone was snoring next to you as
There
well.
was very loud snoring. It's like he snores pretty loudly, it was worse.
My God.
I pity his other half.
So
Love you, babe.
so we all rocked up the next morning. We had consumed a biblical amount of Domino's pizza.
I hadn't.
Yeah.
I had
Well, you had
McDonald's.
Mackey's. It's fine.
Yeah, I had a McDonald's in the case of, and annoyingly, the McDonald's we went to, it was basically a case of what I could get because half the menu seemed to be unavailable. Sadly.
So we had basically sold out the local Domino's in Castle Donington.
Yeah, I saw the picture and it was just a pile of pizza. It
Yeah,
looked great.
we rocked up the next morning, had a slight incident trying to get into the track, but that's fine. We got in, which is the
we
main
don't
thing.
really like talking about that.
No. And it was basically just down to business, figure out what we were doing for the day.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not much to do. I mean, to be honest, compared to last year, the car was in one piece. It was assembled. We weren't alley taping it together.
Wins the record for the earliest we finished a car prep because we finished it the day before the event.
It did feel a bit weird seeing everybody else frantically trying to piece either their engine, their aero, or something together.
Oh,
while we were
yeah.
just kind of sitting
Oh
there.
god, the time attack WhatsApp in like the few days building up, there were
Help me!
yeah, I mean there were people being
It's
like,
awful.
oh, I've got to reinstall my engine, put my new turbos on, put my new intercoolers in, and we were just like,
We're done.
We've got to change some stickers and polish the car.
Yeah,
I think all
and
that was
give it
missing
some more
as
fuel.
of the point we arrived was I hadn't finished aligning it, which is not a big job when it was little things, it just needed a toe change, whatever.
He just needed 2 people for it, and it was fine.
Yeah,
So.
like I just had to set a square and chain and run something different, which was easy.
we were still finishing it on the Saturday morning before we loaded it up.
Yeah.
And so
There's like, as of when we arrived, the only things we really had to do was that little tiny toe change and then 3 stickers.
That changed throughout the day, clearly, because of Saturday.
Yeah, and racing being racing, that did not last.
Um,
So I don't think anything really happened until you went out for practice.
It was
No,
a pretty
we
chill
had-
morning,
we
wasn't it,
had,
really?
we had normal sign up, normal like my driver briefing, scrutineering went fine while I was in the driver briefing.
Everyone being deafened by East Midlands Airport
Yeah.
constantly. Thanks, noise limits.
It wasn't really much.
Nothing happened,
Yeah,
really.
we were already getting attention. We had people come around and visit us, other people in the paddock going, what on earth is this thing in this garage? You know, the crowd started arriving, so part of the reason why we chose Time Attack is Time Attack events are always attached to other car shows and festivals and so on. So this was attached to Tuna Fest Midlands?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
So we knew that there'd be a good crowd of a couple, tens of thousands
It's
of
always
people.
a 6-figure number to my knowledge. I know
At least 5.
I think it's normally a 5-figure number at Tuna Fest. It's 6-digit at
it's
Right.
like
Brands.
250,000 people at that. or something like
At
that.
Brands,
Yes.
yeah, but not at
Yeah,
Donington.
go Japan it was. I think it's usually about 100,000.
But we'll get on to go
We'll get on to
Japan
go
in a bit.
Japan later.
But yeah,
yeah.
so we knew there'd be some interest, so we had people in. I believe before even the first session, we'd already had like
We
a
did.
couple of families come in, and we had a kid sitting kind of
Yes,
thing. 'Cause
I
we always
saw
like doing that.
That was cute.
We do like doing that. I don't know
I
if any
love doing
drivers
it.
are like outright against it. But
never met anyone who is.
I can imagine somebody saying, "Oh, my car's all ready. I don't really want the kid to sit in
Yeah.
it." But
It adds to the public experience at the end of
it's an
it.
open top car. You can lift the kid in and out. It
Yeah.
makes their whole day probably.
Yeah,
getting to
'cause I
sit in this
know-
basically a
I
giant
think,
Hot Wheels
like
car.
both times
so
we've done this, because I've done it 3 times, although I wasn't doing it this one actually. It was like we did it this year with the Lola, and it was great watching. But you just watch people's faces light up. It's lovely. Did it last year and the year before, and both times I think the last time when it was Donington, these kids got in, looked super excited, and I just turned to the parents and went, "You have a very expensive journey ahead of you."
Yeah.
you're
Yes.
welcome.
Because to me, you give someone that chance and
Yeah.
like that experience, and they can go, "Oh, I could do this. I could get really into this." And I think, like, if you look at F1 for example, it's like you can't just go there and go into pit lanes. They get a little upset with you if you try that. I imagine.
I think it's something that we as a team are quite okay with as well.
Yeah.
It's just like as long as we're not dismantling the car right down to the
Clearly.
body.
It-
Yeah.
It's giving other people the experiences that we would like if we were kids there. Like to go down memory lane for a second. I remember in 2020, I was doing my F1000. I was driving my F1000 car in the Monoposto Championship at Alton Park, and I was on the front row for the race. And as we were all gridding up and stuff, I saw over the barrier to the left there was a little kid on their dad's shoulders, and the kid was just waving to every single car, like kids do on bridges over motorways and stuff like that. And I clocked this, and I just gave a wave back, and I remember the dad like tapping the kid and being like, "Look, that one's waving back to you." And I could see that they were both really, really happy in that
things
moment.
like that. Yeah.
Like, it's little things that just make the day of the average person that either it's just there to have a good time, or maybe wants to get a little bit more into racing, and they can feel a little bit of a connection.
I want everyone to be able to get into the sport. Like personally, it's a sport that means a huge amount.
We know
to
it's
me,
expensive, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to connect with it.
Yeah, I think there's ways of connecting with it that
Yeah.
aren't. Even if I think the racing is, you can't avoid it. I'll be honest. It's just
Talking
is.
back to race day then.
Yeah.
Matt,
Yep.
how was the first outing?
Warm up. Yeah.
So
Trial by fire, I guess.
a little bit. So
Not raced in 3 years. Had no idea what the car was doing.
yeah. So
Off we go.
the last time I raced properly for a whole season was 2021 in Sports 1000. That ended with a fire. The car's
So it
fine.
ended well.
Insert picture here.
Yes, the car is fine. We'll get onto that later. Then I did one track day in your Mazda, the Team Sakura.
Yeah, it's when
You
we
Master.
tried to scare.
It
You
was-
tried to scare me and failed.
It was when we tested it.
Yeah, he's
at-
surprisingly infallible.
He's quite good actually.
Not like Archie, our
No.
photographer, who's
Our
not here.
photographer.
He's walked off.
Yeah, luckily we can tell it's because he's not here. When I drove him round, at one point I definitely heard a screaming noise, and I also and when we were eventually done, he took his helmet off and he went several different colours. I think it was green then white.
You're not allowed to discuss colours, James. It's fine.
And he
Shut up.
and he did even when we were running the Lola up and down here. So
Oh my God.
So my house is on like sort of a strip of lane that serves a couple of farms. So it's about half a mile long, and the car's not got its MOT or anything at the moment, so we can't take it out on the road. So we were driving it up and down this private lane, and I obviously gave everyone the
Yeah.
chance to hop in the
Of
passenger
course,
seat.
because
and
who
go on.
would not want that?
So I had Archie in, our lovely photographer Archie. We love you.
Occasionally.
And got it on the straight bit of the road, gunned it, and even with the wind noise in the V8, I could just hear him just sort of being like, "Oh my god!" in the passenger seat.
Oh, so anyway, went
Yeah.
out for warm up, which is supposed to be
So-
take it chill, figure out what you're doing.
It's fine.
Hopefully
So-
your car doesn't
yeah.
detonate.
Like, if you're going to do like your install laps and just sort of check stuff works, that's when you tend to do it.
Yeah. So I've driven this car twice before. Once in the dry at Anglesey in 21. And it was just a track day, just having some fun with it, didn't push very hard or anything. And then once at Donington, also in 21, but it was absolutely chucking it down with rain, and I couldn't keep the thing out of the gravel traps. So not exactly a huge test bed to work off, but I knew that the car was very capable and very drivable, despite what it looks like and how it sounds. It's a very friendly car.
Yeah, I did a bunch of setup work prior to make sure it was friendly when you
But
approached it. and
even
tell.
before your sort of magic hands touch the setup, the way that it's been built by Gardner Douglas and just the sheer size of the rear tyres.
I mean, it's a consumer car, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
for people to buy and drive on the road.
Yeah,
so-
like it's a very it's a pretty niche one, but it's still like the tyre sizing is done as such that it's going to understeer first, so it's just trying to be friendly
Nice.
to a drive
It-
to an
it's-
X when you drive
it's-
that especially.
It's designed to be enjoyed by kind of amateur car enthusiasts who want to just do a couple of track days and maybe do a road trip to Le Mans and stuff like that.
Yeah, like just have some fun with something that's sort of inspired by something quite famous,
Yeah,
historic.
and you can go quite quickly in it without it sort of feeling like you're on the ragged edge and having to really, really work it.
fight with it. So how did it feel on warm up then?
Really fast. So
No, no
I
way.
remember you coming to the pits again. It's like, so what's it like? And it was like,
Oh
Fast.
my god. We were probably the fastest thing in a straight line in the entire
if
pit
not,
lane.
we were
Or we
top
were.
of-
I mean,
of-
to be fair, I'm saying that knowing that Gobstopper 3 was a couple garages down, so that thing's probably still faster than us in a straight line.
You know, that thing, I have a soft spot for that
It's
car. We
just-
even got visited by them at one point.
Disregarding Gobstopper 3, we are incredibly fast in this thing in a straight line.
in the run group, so in the club run group that we were in, we were definitely the quickest thing in a straight line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Because
You were just pulling on people.
I was
constantly.
pulling on like 911s that had been prepared by Porsche Club GB for a couple of their guys.
That felt quite amusing.
Yeah.
That was good.
And I think the other thing that felt very Can-Am was I only needed 2 gears for the entire lap.
Yeah, because you have so much torque that you can just shit, just like,
Yeah.
okay, just like, oh, I'm going through a slow chicane
So
off third then.
I guess.
It would get just to the very top of 4th before the final chicane, and apart from that, any slow corners would just be a blip down to 3rd, and then gun it back up to 4th. So it was relatively easy on the kind of gear, using the manual gearbox and so on, and heel and towing it down the box is relatively easy. So that wasn't too bad. So it was just getting used to the pace of it, and like I've mentioned, it had so much rear grip, so much traction. It was so drivable that I could kind of just turn into the corner and just give it full
Just go.
power, and it just went.
Yeah, there was a ton of rear end grip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
super
so
nice, very drivable, like Matt
So
said.
yeah, so the first run went really well. I think we did a mid 16 straight away.
By the
Like
end
a
of the session, it was on a
16.6,
16.6,
I
like
think,
mid
yeah.
16 somewhere. Like it,
Wait.
you just sort of took some time actually got used to it.
So immediately we're in the same ballpark area as what Garth Douglas had said the car any T70 had done
On
around
what was
that track.
essentially was the most warm because, like as I said, you've not driven meaningfully in anger in 3 years. I've got no setup data on the car, which I keep gathering throughout the day, like so on. We don't really know what it's going to do, so we're
And the
immediately.
tyres were brand new as well.
Yeah.
So we also had to put tyre in, tyres you'll warm through there, scrubbing, and that was like, okay, yeah, we've immediately matched the time, bang, go.
We wanted a 1:15 by the end of the day,
I
so we'll
wanted
get
it-
onto that as
we'll,
we
we'll
go.
go to that later. 'Cause I
But
wanted
that
a
was the
15
goal.
Yeah, I wanted a 15 at
Yeah.
least.
And that's a pretty respectable time around Donington.
That's a solid
Donington.
time. Like
yeah.
for reference, our MX-5 with 85 horsepower does a 130s, and I would struggle to go faster than
Yeah.
that, really.
So, coming from warm-up, you tell us to make some setup changes. I don't know exactly. I can't remember exactly what we did in each session.
Was the first one, if it was, I did a damper change.
We did damper
Some-
and
changed damper settings, and I did tyre pressures.
yeah, I mean we did tyre pressures no matter what.
That was always. I think that was.
Yeah.
I think we basically only changed it twice.
We just had to
eat.
we just had to equalise tyre pressures.
It
and
was,
that was it.
yeah.
I did a couple of little bits just for balance
Yeah.
setting because it was like the first thing he said to me was when I try turning and braking it just starts to come around. It's like okay, it's an element of sport.
Which is obviously you expect that in a light mid-engined car, but it was just it's a bit scary when you're fully loaded up going down Craner curves and you try to tap the brake and get that left, and it was just big sort of arm over arm
Yeah,
counter
just doesn't
steer
want to do
moment.
that.
Yeah, that's not fun.
No.
But genuinely, I think in that first session it was the only time it actually had any big moments.
Yeah, it was tyre pressure.
Yeah,
And it was that. It was easy to fix, which is the main thing.
And then
Yeah.
over the course of the day, the only setup changes we made were just to gradually dial the sort of the front end of the car in more and more and more. So sort of taking it away from what you would call like a sort of a friendly track day setup.
It's what I would give, like, for example, if I do it by FIA ratings, if I was doing like a bronze driver that was really new to a car, I typically do what I gave to them at the start of the day. So just something that's going to understeer first, or it can get a little bit exciting for them. Just something that's really confidence inspiring and so on, which would have been, I'd say, that was like the session 2 car where
Yeah.
we've done the changes to help give it a bit more stability.
It
And
broke
at
Matt
which
in a
point-
nice manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it gave
Yeah.
him something.
which was the goal.
then-
Like it gave you something friendly to work
Yeah.
on before when we got to lunchtime. It's okay, you can start making this
Going
angry
for it.
now.
And then by the end of session 2, I was starting to really run into that understeer because I was starting to get much more comfortable with the car. So places like Old Hairpin and Turn 1 a little bit as well, and that I always forget the name of it, that long multi-apex right-hander onto the back
I can
straight.
never remember it.
But getting on the power there, I was starting to feel the understeer sort of fighting me off and causing me to sort of get out the throttle or be a bit slower on
Just
the
have to
way in.
wait.
Yeah.
So
we dialed that out
Yeah, so
afterwards. We changed the anti-roll bars at
It
the
was-
front a
it
little
was-
bit.
So I sort of went for, okay, here's what I would usually do for this. If I'm just keeping it simple, so it's anti-roll bar. I think it was just anti-roll bar. I can't remember what else I changed off the top of my head. That helped.
Nothing. I mean, it was no crazy changes as the thing. It was all minor things that we could
It's
do.
all just
Did
core
you-
balance stuff.
Did you put up the rear ride height a tiny bit?
I
No,
originally
but down the
wanted-
front.
I originally wanted.
We
I did
wanted
that
to,
final.
but
I originally wanted to, and sort of like actually no. The
we
rear
may.
was
I
okay.
mean,
Yeah.
I
Because you
mean,
were happy with the rear all day, so I didn't really want to
Yeah.
do anything with it.
eventually we were going to do something with the rear ride height, but one of the Racing Honda Championships got canned for some reason. I don't know what happened.
Due
but-
to
It
some
got-
red flags
it-
over the day.
It got moved behind us. So originally that race would have run before our
Oh,
final
it
session,
just
and
got moved.
to
Okay,
the end.
Yeah, which sort of
Sure.
there was a couple of extra things we would have done, but it was like, okay, we need to be in a hurry now.
Some people ran into some oopsies. Effectively, it's right. You see it happen.
There were a few red flags throughout the day. Not too many. There was
It's about the normal amount.
Yeah, it was nothing crazy. Did anyone get black flagged?
no.
There was a black and white.
No, there was black and white.
There was some penalty flags out in a few sessions for track limits and so on, but we avoided all those.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had a relatively clean day.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
I mean, we aim to race clean, as you do.
Sporting
both-
integrity.
Sporting
I think,
integrity.
I know both of us have enough driving experience.
Yeah.
To generally be pretty.
You're not
good.
going to be idiots on the track
No.
like some people.
And time attack's all about just finding the space to put a lap in.
It's part of the game.
Yeah.
It's qualifying essentially.
If you're-
for those unfamiliar.
If you're catching up to someone, if you're on the back of someone or overtaking people, you haven't really done a good job of finding space.
Yeah.
And people should be, if you're on a cooler lap, they should be off the line giving you some space so you can gun it.
It's essentially in everyone's best interest to give everyone else space.
Yes,
So,
when you can.
Yeah.
Clearly, when you're on a hot lap, you have the right
like,
of way.
the rules of
but-
Britain is if you're on a hot lap, you take priority, and if someone's coming up behind you, they have to respect that you are already on one.
Yeah.
So.
So
What about the third outing then, Matt?
So this is when things started to get interesting.
bit, yeah.
When it started to
We
get
all
fun.
we all had a little go in the car, not driving it clearly. We all sat in the driver's seat, and
That was
Matt,
end of third.
at the end of the third thing, at the end of the third session, Matt came in and said the brakes feel a bit funny, guys.
Yeah. So
And he wasn't kidding either.
No,
yeah. So to clarify, so throughout the day, the brakes have been getting quite hot. There isn't much airflow to the front discs on this car as it comes. So we took out the fog lights over lunch,
Gave it a
didn't
little
we?
bit of hell.
a little bit.
Because the hole that was left then fed directly into the front wheels, so that was cooling the front brakes down a little bit.
Yeah, so that took it because we were going, okay, if it's getting brake fade, then
Yeah.
the first thing you go is, okay, are they cool enough? So that's going to attempt to fixing that. So we discovered it wasn't that.
No, it was so because in the first couple of sessions I've been sort of struggling with definitely a bit of brake heat issues, so the pedal has sort of been gradually getting a bit longer as
I
the
have a
session had gone on.
hypothesis as to what that was
Yeah.
actually.
Well, we can discuss it. Yeah.
And then at the end of the third session, I was like, the brake pedal is just not how it was at the start of the day.
It's like it just kept
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
And
So-
we
so
did
Matt
a full
came in.
bleed as well before we got to Donington. Part of the checks that we did,
You
along
spent a
with
long time
bleeding the brakes.
engine oil and gearbox oil, we fully bled the brake system.
So we thought everything was okay.
Because the fluid was old, so it's just good habit to flush.
Yeah.
So Matt came in
Just
from,
cycle
from the
it.
third session and said, "Guys, the brakes feel a bit loose." Well, I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said the brakes are off.
Squidgy, I think is what it
Squidgy,
Yes,
yeah.
the pedal was
They're a bit
squidgy.
soft. So James and I sort of looked at each other and went, "Huh?"
And so we go, okay, let's just see. Like,
James got in the car.
like a driver tells you the brake feels squishy. Okay, what do you mean? It's like
Matt
it can be
described
hard one
it.
to describe sometimes. So
Yeah.
we sat in, and it was like I've stepped on enough brake pedals in my life, and I step on it, and it's like there's
That's
nothing
not right.
Here. It's like the front, like half inch to an inch of pedal travel was just air.
It was
basically.
more than that, if you ask me.
Like-
It was about that much of the brake,
It
maybe an
tends
inch
to
or two.
It probably was about an inch of actual travel. It feels like
Yeah.
a lot when you're moving your foot.
Fair enough, but it was just not there. There was
The
nothing.
first good chunk of this was like, yeah, there's nothing here, is there?
You know it's bad when I have never raced competitively.
You have a playing go-kart.
I've done go-karts. I am not legally allowed to drive manual cars on the road, and I stepped on the brake and said, "Yes, that needs to be fixed."
Yeah, when someone
yeah.
with like basically no competitive experience, especially, that's like, yeah, no. That's
No, it's
wrong.
not good. So we opened up the front of the car again. Fortunately, on a quick side tangent, the Lola is a dream to work on.
Yeah,
It's
95%
beautiful.
of stuff I'd ever want to touch are really easy.
The
to
back
get to.
clamshell opens, the front clamshell comes off.
The Gardner Douglas.
Sorry, the
Yes.
Gardner
We
Douglas.
shouldn't
yeah.
call it a Lola.
We shouldn't call it a Lola.
It's
yeah,
not
we,
really.
we call it a Lola just because we're
it's
lazy.
based.
We've given it the sort of the pet name of like Lola,
Lola,
or
yeah.
the Lola. Obviously, it is
Yeah.
a Gardner Douglas
It is a Gardner
T70,
Douglas
and
car,
I feel
yeah.
like we need to make sure to call it that
We will
because
clarify.
Gardner Douglas were lovely enough to not only be on the other end of the phone whenever I called them, going,
They were very good
yeah,
at it, honestly.
do you have a base setup sheet? They did. They sent it to
and
us.
I've looked at a lot of setup sheets in my life, I've seen a lot of very bad ones. This one was not a very bad one. It was really good. It was here's your road settings, here's your race settings. It was really helpful.
Just really good.
It gave me a good starting point.
Yeah, just anything I had questions about regarding the car. So I remember phoning them up and saying, you know, what rough lap time would you expect? Any prep work you think we should do? They gave us all of that.
All the information we wanted.
And then most importantly, in the week building up to the event, hey, Guard Douglas, is there supposed to be a big hole in the bottom of the car?
Okay, let's mention this quickly.
Oh, there's not.
Yeah.
Oh, there's meant to be an aluminium plate there. Oh, no, we haven't got that.
Yes,
No.
this is going back a bit again to what would it have been? I think
The
we got
week before, it was literally the
basically
weekend
the week
before
off.
race
It was
day.
basically a week before we noticed this, then the week off, we sort of.
Yeah.
So we looked at the bottom of the car, and when yes, there is a big hole in the bottom of the car. No way, that's not supposed to be there.
So there's
It was from the
various panels just along the bottom of it to just sort of. It has a flat floor from factory, but it's just to contain everything essentially. And we sort of look through the top and we go,
Huh?
is that meant to be there?
No.
So-
there's basically a hole underneath the engine between the diffuser and like the midsection of the car.
Yeah,
essentially.
so
And the passenger compartment,
at
basically.
some point, because I know that the previous owner had engine issues. I know that he blew up 2 engines, the first owner, when he was track day.
We need to hear more about that in private later, because that's funny.
Yeah, so I know that he sort of blew the bottom end out of the engines a couple of times. So he beefed up the bottom end of the engine. So we
So
have
it's sort of a weird build. It's an LS6 with
so it's 5.7 out of a 3rd gen Corvette.
or something. I'm
There'll
not,
be an asterisk here if I'm wrong.
I'll correct it in post. if
not
it's
as
wrong.
my engineering colleague will correct us because he knows way more about engines than
John
me.
will just correct us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly
as he
ones
does.
that I don't work on, I don't tend to know much about. So
But yeah, it's
skill
got
bottom end.
and it has sort of a fast road cam in it, not a race cam, but an uprated cam, and the ITBs on the top. So it's a nice engine. It's not just a stock LS6. It's been nicely worked on a little bit, but we realised that we could see through the bottom of it to the car, and you know, obviously when you're used to things like Sports 1000 prototypes,
That's not a problem.
and Caterhams and stuff like that, you're kind of used to seeing through the bottom of the engine bay, and even in most road cars, you can see the floor out the bottom of the engine.
Yeah, either of our apps or whatever. Like you
But
with the-
it's when we were reinstalling the
arc, no.
diffuser.
Sorry, with the.
So the car has a small diffuser that's mostly there for aesthetic
It
purposes.
definitely does something. I did have a little bit of a because I noticed based on your comments, it definitely worked.
It was
Yeah.
definitely doing something.
But for a diffuser to work most effectively, you have to have a fully flat floor feeding air to it.
Yeah,
I love that
I
alliteration.
have a vendetta against them being used without something leading in because 99% of the time that just kills any of the effect.
We'll move on.
Maxton Design, we're talking to you.
We'll move on before James does his entire thesis project on
But
camera.
anyway,
Before I go off onto the one of the things I might do for a master's engineering or bachelor's engineering or whatever.
In short, there was a.
We'll come there another time.
In,
Probably.
in short, there was a
I'd
big
like
hole
to.
in the floor
Yeah.
that we needed
So-
to fix, and James has zero confidence in himself when it comes to fabrication.
Yeah,
so we had to fix it somehow.
Yeah, I'm not a good it's one. I wish I was good at it. I'm not a good fabricator.
So essentially, we had the discussion of, well, ever since every time I've driven the car and ever since my dad's owned it, that panel's not been there. So the car is perfectly safe and
It is
perfectly
drivable.
quick without that panel there.
yeah, it doesn't hang around.
But as Team Sakura, and especially as people who we take having good aero very seriously and not just having a diffuser that doesn't do anything.
Yes.
We were like, no, we need to have that panel there. So I climbed under the car one night, measured how big the gap was. James ordered an aluminium sheet, and then John, who's the only one we trust in the team to do
he's
this
the one
work.
that I would delegate it to fab work to because I suck at fab work. He's not amazing at it, but he's better than me.
Yeah.
That's
So-
not saying
so-
much, but fair
so-
enough.
so-
Like I'm not good at
So
it. Like,
he marked up and cut out the panel and got, we bolted it all in. I then sealed it round the edges with alley tape just to make it completely smooth. So the car was as close to factory fresh as possible.
yeah, so we
and
can
then
get
with
within
our
time frame.
and then with our upgrades, so yeah, driver seats went, all the road seats went out with a foam seat and the go-kart seat in, new harness, new
New
gear knobs,
springs.
smaller steering wheel, new springs.
All the stuff we discussed earlier, basically.
Yeah.
It was very, very close to factory. So
And then we started having brake issues
back
in
on
session 3.
back to where we came
So
onto
back
this
to a
from.
few days after this.
So Matt came in and said there were brake issues. We felt the brake pedal and yes, there were definitely brake issues.
yeah,
So we
it's
took the
like,
front
yeah,
of the
it was.
car off. looked at the clear tubing for the brakes, which is a bit odd. But
so the front lines, if memory serves, is all braided. The rear, there's a clear bit back to when it splits off to
and then goes to braided again.
The corners. We looked at it and could see air. So we were me and Pete, and John, my colleague, the other engineer on the main engineer on the team, sort of all turned and looked at each other and went, "That's a problem."
If I know that something's wrong, it's really, really wrong. So I looked at it and went, "Yep, that's not supposed to happen."
We quite quickly spotted what it was. So we sort of did like a bit of an emergency bleed.
James Dunn went and asked 9 other teams to find a brake bleeding thing.
I think it was 9. I asked most of the way up and down the paddock, and eventually managed to find
one of the few things we forgot to pack when we were loading the trailer on Saturday afternoon was the bottle and the tube that we used.
Sod's law.
So something I'm probably going to get for next time we go racing is some kind of something we can put all that stuff in as one stack and wheel it around.
So we bled the brakes again, and we thought we did.
And while we were doing it, we found a leaky bleed screw, didn't we?
Yes, the inside front left bleed screw. So there's 2 Picard on this thing. So it's a whacking great AP racing one. So fluid comes in, and then up sort of a U shape. This one on the front left was leaky. So after we'd finished bleeding it, Matt pressed it, and I just noticed a tiny bit of fluid leak out and some air bubbles. And well, okay, so that's basically a time bomb in terms of it's when that goes light, not if. Annoyingly, we went to bleed the rears, and as we went to bleed the rears, we were told that the schedule's changed. So
the Honda Championship went behind us. All the way behind us.
So suddenly the run group before us were now out on track.
So 35 minutes turned into like 10, and it was
way worse than that. It was like an hour and 20 turned into like half an hour.
It was a massive time loss, and it was, do we think we can definitely do this in time? And
the answer was no.
And it was, in the future, I think we possibly could, but if we were, we'd immediately sat it to do something.
We were dialed in, and we wanted to just say, look, we need to get the car out on track. We want to finish the day.
Yeah.
So and even though the brakes were a bit shoddy, it was drivable.
They got better immediately from. So we knew this was the problem.
Yeah.
So
we know it's a problem.
So they immediately felt better in that moment. However, I started session 4. And by the end of, let's say, lap 3...
Like 3 or 4 type.
Yeah,
I
only had brakes if the pedal was fully pressed to the firewall.
Which is not how you like it.
No, and also it meant that...
He likes a really firm pedal.
Yeah, essentially I had nothing, and then brakes, and it could lock a wheel, but we don't...
No way.
There was sort of no modulation.
Yeah, it's like, the brakes are applied, something might lock, but all you can do is sort of let go and go again.
You can just sort of pulse the pedal.
Which is not how you want to be driving.
For reference, for those not too sure on what we're talking about with air and so on, a hydraulic line is meant to be fluid. So brake fluid is fairly incompressible. It's like, no matter how much force you put into it, it doesn't tend to squidge much. What you can get, and why you bleed brakes to begin with, is you can get air bubbles in those lines. Air is... You feel like it's not that compressible. It's actually really compressible compared to your brake fluid. So you can end up. So if you've got like a line and it's all fluid, that will move with the pedal movement. Therefore, your caliper, your brake, of course. But if you've got a bubble in the middle of it, it'll go like that'll move. This bit closer to your caliper wouldn't move, and you've just got squishiness in the middle. So you end up with a weird brake feel. In some cases, it can lose your brake force. In this case, it loses your modulation.
It basically gives you a dead zone in the middle.
And it's completely random because it's air. Like you can't predict how it's going to leak.
As the brakes get hotter, the way that the air is positioned in the brakes and how expanded it is changes. So as the brakes get hot, the pedal gets different again.
So in your case, what it was is, so there was we knew there was some air in there. That air gets warm. It expands, so the problem gets worse, which is why it was when he sat there, it's like, this feels okay. But then, as you say, you've got a bit of heat in, and now this bubble is like,
it's enormous.
And
so despite that, Matt went out on track, and within those 3 laps, I think, you pulled out your best time of the day.
It was lap 4.
Lap 4, yeah. You pulled out your best lap time.
Third time lap.
Yeah. It was a 1:14.49 something.
Because also in the middle of this, he wanted more front end on it, and I thought, okay, I ran out of options, and basically Hail Married the setup, and it made a big difference.
We lowered the front end basically as far as we could get away with.
As far as we were okay with doing.
We brought the anti-roll bars.
I was concerned about the front springs deseating.
We took the anti-roll bars all the
the
way,
softest I could get the front roll
all the
on. I
way.
was just trying to do anything front of that.
Yeah.
At that
and
point.
it worked to get us below the 15 goal, which is
So I think I feel
well
like
done.
I feel like we should also clarify at least. So from the driver's side, what was happening with the brakes didn't make me not have brakes. The car still stopped and stopped really well, but it lost me the confidence. So in previous championships and stuff I've raced in, I've always been known as someone who's quite late on the brakes, quite hard on the brakes, and it's where I make up a lot of my time. So I lost a huge amount of time from just not having brake confidence. So lap to lap, if the brake pedal isn't exactly in the same place, when you're doing the exact same hand movements, the exact same pedal movements, then suddenly going for the brake pedal, and rather than it being in the middle of the travel, it's suddenly an extra 3 inches away from you. You're like, okay, I don't quite trust.
It's just random.
This braking.
Because another little factoid for those of you that probably do sim racing, and I imagine somebody watches this does. You've probably had to play around with like your normal cheap pedals that you might get with, say, a Logitech or something like that, where it's just a potentiometer, and then you might have had to go with something nice where it's got a low till in there. Your body remembers position worse than it does remember force. So in that case, it's your body will start going like, where? It's like, what do I do?
It just messes with you.
It's like your intuition, which you have to rely on at that speed, really.
So
Starts getting all out of whack.
The car could still stop really well. I mean, I could still put enough force through the pedal that I could actually lock a brake. So the braking force was still there. It just meant I couldn't build on a braking distance lap on lap. So even on my fastest lap, I was braking sort of quite a long way further back than I would like to, and normally having like a tiny bit of lift off the throttle before hitting the brake, just because I wasn't quite sure of
the
it.
consistency's just not there.
Yeah. Well, I think it says how much, like the little setup stuff helped.
Yeah.
When you came in and went, so okay, we've taken a 1.1 seconds off fastest lap of the day.
Yeah.
And then we're sat going, oh, and it has these issues.
Yeah.
There's probably a 13 in there.
Well,
if we ever return, we want a 13.
If we're going to keep talking about issues, I feel like
Let's cover the lot.
Yeah,
let's cover everything.
So the response I gave when we came in from the end of the last session, the response I immediately gave to these guys was the car was gradually falling apart as the final session went on.
Yeah, that's
I think in any other circumstances, had it been our third or fourth event, and we're a bit more into the flow and so on, or even if it had been like a session in the middle of the day, I would have come in 5 laps from the end and gone, I'm having these problems, let's fix it and we'll go out later. But it was the last session of the day, we'd all worked so hard, and the car was good, and the car was getting a lot of attention from people, so I wanted us to see that checkered flag for the final session. So I stayed out and kept going, but there was a horrible rumble on the front right corner under load, which we believe is a wheel weight that had fallen off in the garage.
Which I still have in my bag, I think.
Because the wheel nuts, when we checked afterwards, had sort of slightly worked their way off, so it's most likely a vibration thing. Vibration is the enemy of basically everything in engineering.
Yeah, because we lost 2 different caps off from the engine during the day.
Yeah. We also had an oil cap try and eject itself at the end of the first session, so we tied it in and that's all.
I'm pretty sure I have said wheel weight right here.
There you go. There it is.
It looks the same as the other ones on the wheels, so that might be the culprit.
Fresh wheel weight.
Yeah, and one of the caps for the cooling system pinged off in the last event as well.
Shit off, genuinely.
Yeah, possibly.
Because we couldn't get it back on again.
No.
It's right.
But
we had the oil cap come off during the day as well.
Yeah, so that came off in session 1 because we opened the back and it was like,
why is there oil everywhere?
So it was the cap out of the rocker covers. So we didn't lose a load of oil.
No,
at
most like 200 mil at most in a dry subsystem.
Yeah.
One thing the team does trust me with is my albeit relatively limited experience with fluids and things.
Worked. You've worked with gearbox oils and so on plenty of times. So
it didn't lose enough oil to be a problem, but we need to get the cap back clearly.
Yeah, obviously, you don't just want to lose more.
So we didn't just want to allocate it.
And also, none of it dropped on the track. All of it was contained on the floor.
Yeah.
Or just vaporized.
Yeah.
We didn't just want to alley tape the hole up clearly. So James and I were looking around the car going, where on earth is this cap?
And
Initially, we jacked the back of the car and it just sort of fell out the bottom.
Yeah, because we were there to do a different thing.
And
while we were there, I think we were there to do the rear anti-roll bar.
And it just fell out the bottom of the car.
We never ended up doing the rear bar because I realised it wasn't really worth doing. But it was... We jacked it up a couple of times and we just sort of go... It's like,
because at that moment we had also sent, I believe,
everybody,
my partner Lindsay and my mum to go over to the drifters who were also at the event.
As well.
Yeah, and the trade stands and everyone.
Yeah, the drifters were the only people who were there that we thought might because some of them were also running LS engines.
LS is a popular drifting. Probably less of them in this country than there used to be, but that's a story for another time, I imagine.
But
we should get the person on who knows drifting.
But that was earlier day stuff.
That was the first session stuff.
So, and all easy little things to remedy. And then in the final session, like I said, so they started to get a bit of a rattle on the front right corner. My steering wheel, one of the bolts on my steering wheel, had sort of gradually loosened itself a little bit
as a result of this vibration.
Yeah. So I could feel a little bit of give and fall, sort of forward and backwards movements in my steering wheel.
Not good emotions in a steering wheel.
I'm sure.
So I was going around trying to set this lap time in a car with an almost non-existent brake pedal that still locked all the wheels, but was an almost non-existent pedal, a steering wheel that was shaking out of my hands, and then
there was a fuel issue.
we started to get fuel surge issues. So
we'd ran out. We'd gone a bit below. In this, I think it's a fairly wide tank, isn't it?
It's a 55-litre foam-filled tank, but it's very wide.
So this is why fuel swirl pots are a thing on big race cars.
Which our car doesn't have.
Later ones did.
For good reason.
And this is why. So you get, if you have a big wide tank, you go into a high G corner, all that fluid's going to move to the side of the G loaders. If your pickup point is not there, you're going to get fuel surge because the pressure drops and the engine sort of goes, what do I do? Obviously, you get fuel down when it comes back. There's two ways of sorting this problem. Either give it enough fuel, or two, you have a fuel swell tank set, which is basically a little fuel tank between the fuel tank and the engine. So fuel comes out of the main tank, goes into the swirl, so that'll be like 5 litres.
It's just a little buffer effect.
So instead of being a big wide thing, it'll be like a little sort of can, like basically a big water bottle, for example. Then it'll feed from that, and that won't get your surge issue. Basically.
So the reason why we had this issue was because of that change in the timetable that had happened.
It sort of thrown us out.
It threw us out a bit. So we had a little bit of fuel left in our big fill bottle. So we just dumped that in, and we knew it was enough to do the session, but it didn't brim the tank. And all the other sessions we'd started with a brim tank. So as I got towards the end of the session, there was still enough fuel in the tank to run the car.
And just move it around and stuff.
But you started getting that sloshing, which caused sort of moments of fuel starvation.
Yeah,
so
which is not nice.
There were times where I was definitely 100% on a faster lap. And I'd go, get around turn one, go down the Craner curves, out of Old Hairpin, and I could feel I was on a faster lap and doing better. And then I'd come out of the next corner,
put your foot down,
give it the throttle, and you just get this kind of like.
But you did manage to pull lap time through in the first couple of laps.
Which is good. We wanted. I know it can do. We know it can do a 30.
We know it can do faster.
I reckon if it was really honest, it would do a 12. Which would be moving.
I think with the brakes working how I wanted, so I had the confidence and no fuel starvation issues.
And I'd do a few more setup tweaks.
I would have definitely, with the car as it was, done I would like to guess a 13.8.
I reckon it would have been a 13.5 or closer.
Okay.
But in the high 13s, which is very respectable.
Well, either way, Matt, we got the trophy.
Either way, we end up with this.
Either way, we have a nice big trophy.
So
Team Sakura Special, show up, be the only one in the class, get a trophy.
So the admin on that we should discuss briefly. I'll mention that very quickly. So we entered as single round entry, so we're not in the overall championship because we're not sure, we haven't started the season or anything.
We don't get our championship points, etc.
So we don't get any points towards the championship, and you get a separate batch of trophies at the end for whoever's the fastest SRE. We were originally Club 2-wheel drive. The head scrutineer then said, because you're open top, will put you in club sport, which is kind of what you expect things like aerial atoms and caterhams to be in.
However,
Yeah, like your open top track toys, basically.
So we were the only entry in club sport. So as long as we finished the session,
We
we were
won.
guaranteed this very large trophy.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest one you've won, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
the
it's the biggest one you won last
Yeah,
year.
because both of us have a pretty good haul of trophies
Yes.
from our many years of racing.
So-
Those are the biggest ones for both of us.
So it is the Team Sakura special now, where we show up, do basically the bare minimum, and then walk away with this giant time attack trophy. Because last year, everybody else broke down except us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Despite us being not the fastest thing in our class, we got a trophy.
Slow as hell in straight line.
This year, we were the only thing in our class and got a trophy. Although, to be super fair,
to keep ourselves entertained.
yeah, we were comparing
decided-
ourselves against club as a whole, so
We
two-wheel and
put
four-wheel.
ourselves again. We went, okay, we would have been in Club 2-wheel drive. That's what we entered as. Let's see where we put in
So
that. We would have won that in single round entry as well, beating a 911 GT3 RS,
Which is
Yes.
very high.
which is a really
And I think
very
if we
beautiful car
if we'd
to
been in the overall, if we'd been in the whole championship and we'd been Club 2-wheel drive, it would have been third.
Yes.
Third on the day, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
so
the only
we
thing,
would have got a trophy however you sliced it.
because the only
And we
thing
would have been fifth if you consider club as a whole
yeah,
with
and
four-wheel
you only,
drive
and
as
they
well.
only do.
Which, honestly, is hella respectable if you
for a
ask me.
car that is objectively very underbuilt for regs. Like aero-wise, there isn't anything
Nothing.
really. It's basically just a V8 and just lots of
A V8 and a
mechanical
Pratt.
grip. On a car we had, I had no setup data with. He hadn't driven in ages and hadn't driven in anger in 3 years. On a track you'd never driven in the dry,
in that car at least.
especially in that car. Like that was a lot of unknowns and all things considered. But
Yeah.
job done.
So, going forward then, is there anything that you, like, obviously we've discussed what needs doing to the car.
fix the brakes.
It needs a little bit of tinkering.
What is
yeah.
the sort of general future for it then?
Go Japan.
Like short term, I guess is
Short term is fixable.
we want to
fix
do the
things.
last 2 rounds of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Japan, and there's I think it's like I don't know which show it's with. Like it'll be Tuna Fest something. I can't remember.
Tuna Fest East Anglia or something.
Yeah,
It'll
Tuna
be
Fest.
Tuna Fest East or something like that.
So that's but for us, it's Brands and Snetterton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
And if we any development we'd like to do to the car, because there are a few bits I'd like to do, we have to get past the client, my father, first. So he wants the car, or at least at the moment, the spec we've been given is be able to make everything reversible. So obviously we can bolt the original seats back in, we can take the race harness out, we can swap the steering wheels back over.
We can
and
rip
so
all the
on.
stickers off,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
He was there this weekend watching, because of course it's his car, he was going to be. So we're hoping that we impressed him enough that he'll allow us to do the 2 major things that I want to do, which is 1, keep the fog lights off and turn them into proper brake cooling ducts.
Like we can just screw little ducts in there to get the
Yeah,
brake.
and secondly, fit actual canards to the nose. So later Gardner Douglas T70s, because ours is chassis 21 and was originally built in 06, so it's actually a relatively early Gardner Douglas T70. It doesn't have much on the nose. It's a very aerodynamic, very sort of simple sort
It's
of.
very slippery
Yeah,
shape.
looks like a sort of a very first gen Lola T70.
Like 66, 67.
Yeah.
It's a very plain body, all things
Yeah,
considered.
it's
While-
really nice and simple. It looks like.
Later Gardner Douglas T70s get a few extra sort of like grills and sort of even like exit vents and so on.
Just
so,
bells and whistles, really.
yeah, so later
All
ones,
little developments.
so later ones have some exit vents behind the rear wheels to get some of the turbulent air out. But most importantly, most later ones get some kind of canard or chin splitter to deal with that front end lift that you get in cars like this.
Essentially, this little small strip on like the bottom end of the bonnet.
Yeah, we'll insert
Very
I'll
some
flash
pictures.
a picture of some canards
Yeah.
that James
Yeah,
approves.
yeah, or we'll find one of like an in period one like Lola T70 that had these.
Or,
on.
Yeah.
or even the green Gardner Douglas
Yeah,
T70
yes.
that was
Yeah,
there.
well,
So-
we've got footage
So
of.
when
we've got footage of it, like
so when Gardner Douglas came to the event, they'd actually managed to get themselves a club stand at Tuna Fest.
Super cool to see them with all their cool cars.
Yeah,
So-
it felt cool being essentially a factory, team,
Yeah.
which was quite good fun.
So they came with their current show T70, which is a really nice green one. It had its windscreen on, so ours has the bolt-on windscreen, but obviously for track purposes we left it off. So that hopefully we'll get some footage of that either up here or in the YouTube video, so you'll see what it could look like more as the road spec.
Yeah.
But most importantly, that one has these 2 sort of canards sticking either side of the nose. And we know aerodynamically that they make a difference, and Gardner Douglas especially.
If set up correctly, big asterisk.
But-
Yes,
But
massive asterisk here.
Gardner Douglas have specifically told us that they didn't just put those on their later T70s for looks. They put them on because they experienced what we have experienced.
Yeah,
And
they categorically improve downforce on the front.
Yeah.
These are the ones that actually make a difference.
I suspect it's just a case of just making it a little bit more balanced. I doubt there's a lot of actual downforce there. It's just balancing it.
The issue is that to fit them, we have to hard mount them to the body.
Yes.
Which wouldn't be reversible without leaving some holes in the car. So
Which
we're
is
going to have to persuade my father to be on board with putting those on there. Because that would make a big difference in the high speed stuff.
That should be the easier one due to the fact that it's
That's
it's
one
kind
I'd
of aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
I'd be okay doing that fab work. That's fairly simple.
And,
Yeah.
Well, they give us the canals.
Yeah,
Can't
well,
just
no,
have them
exactly.
to fit the
I'd be
nose.
okay
Yeah.
installing those.
Yeah.
I can
Thanks,
manage that.
GD.
Yeah. Is there any other work you'd want to do on the
I
car?
think if we
It's
if
all
we're staying-
minor stuff
If we're
apart
staying
from
on
that.
downforce ones, if we wanted to, we'd go and flap around.
I'd probably, I
yeah.
think if we were to put the canards on the nose, I'd put a gurney flap on the back as well,
Or,
just
or
to.
at the very least, I would have them prepared, ready to stick on if we go. Yeah, we need them.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'd
agreed.
I'd just keep it in the back pocket, basically.
So,
And then it's the get the brakes 100% sorted,
Replace
And-
the problem child that is that bleed nipple.
and
Yeah.
possibly install a swell pot.
I want to,
I'd
but
love-
I doubt
I
we
don't-
could, we wouldn't be able to do it for brands.
I do it for Snetterton or for if we do anything with it in the future.
we just
Yeah.
have. I mean, the main thing is remember to brim the tank every single set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because ultimately a simple fix to the problem is just make sure you
It's
have enough
it's just engineered diff
Yeah.
at this point.
because we don't get through enough fuel to run out.
No.
No, it was actually surprisingly more efficient than we thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We-
I was very, very, very cautious on my fuel counts.
We,
on
we,
purpose.
we were worried that it was going to almost drain a tank every run. So
And
it's
it
a
didn't,
big
so-
American V8. So we brought a lot of fuel.
we
And
bought
now-
like 4 jerry cans plus the car already full.
and
yeah.
now we have enough fuel to probably also get us through brands.
Which is great.
Or it's probably like fill an extra and you're good. Like,
Whatever.
But because it was getting through 18 litres in a
I'm
session.
gonna say 20.
20. We'll say 20.
it's thirsty,
and-
but it's not.
and
that
we were
thirsty.
expecting closer to 40.
Yeah, so
it's used half as much fuel
it's
as we
basically
thought.
like 1.3 litres a minute, I think, is my
Yeah.
rough estimate.
Yeah. So
By 1.2, 1.3,
Yeah.
give or take, depending on the
Talking
road.
other things of the future then, what else is it that Team Sakura have we got plans for the
So
future?
should we
aside
move
from
away from the Lola
Lola?
for now then?
we'll
Yeah.
move away
Well,
from
well,
the
well,
Gardner Douglas Lola
yeah.
homage.
No, I'll say one more thing on the
Yeah.
T70. So, obviously, we plan to finish the time attack season with the T70. Then, I'm sure we would love to run the T70
Yeah,
again for
anything,
next year. So,
Yes.
we'll see essentially what the client says to us about it. And
So I think it would end up in sprints, like javelin.
yeah,
sprints, most likely.
javelin sprints or.
I think that's pretty unintrusive in the car.
It,
like-
or if we can get special dispensation, possibly back in time attack.
yeah, or hill climb with it. That'll be,
Yeah.
that'll be a
It'll
fun
be-
time.
it'll
I
be
think.
really fun.
That would fit well with the internet famous Porsche engine lower, actually, which is I think the story of where someone just had, I think it might have been a Group C engine. I don't think it was, but they
Oh.
basically had a Porsche race engine. What was it? 935 engine.
You mean the one that looked, the logo that looks a bit like a 908?
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. So I know that guy personally.
Same, but I can't remember.
So
the car.
no, so what it was?
It's a very
so,
quick tangent that's Lola related.
So he bought this load. Is it a 210 or something? It's the
Yes, there's very few. Interestingly, apparently a lot of them went to, I think it was Scandinavia.
yeah. So
for some reason.
normally that car would have come with an inline 4 like a Cosworth BDG or something.
Yeah.
And he had seen online this air-cooled Porsche Flat 6 being made by people. Very expensively modified one, so race-spec'd air-cooled 911 engine. But most importantly, the fan had been moved from your typical position upright. So when you open the back end of an old 911, normally the first thing you're greeted by is the fan.
It's the fan.
The guys who've been working on this engine have developed a multi-link bar to move the fan upright. So if you go on Google and look at Porsche 908s, Porsche 917s, and so on, you'll see that the fan is up on the top.
I'll put pictures up
You
again.
can
So-
also find for this specific this Porsche engine Lola, you can find the build source for it. It's basically internet famous. I think it had like 1 million hits on the internet, which is
Yeah,
that's like early internet.
it was
so
a
that's
very
really impressive. Early internet.
it was a very big engine build at the time,
Big deal.
and a lot of custom billet work and stuff to get it all up there.
Yeah.
So he bought that engine and fitted it into this little Lola. Had to recut some of the rear shell and stuff like
Had to
that,
play
some of the
around
rear
with it.
chassis, and it's now one of the most beloved cars in hill climb. It's my favourite thing in all of
I
British
love
hill
that car.
climb.
Yeah.
It's-
Owners free. but not-
Moving on from the tangent.
but
though.
yes, so away from that. Sorry for the tangent.
We're good at those.
Well, we will run the T70 as much as we can,
And as much as we're allowed to.
yeah, basically as much as we're allowed to.
Yeah.
It's fun as hell.
in
so-
It's a
whatever
lovely car.
in whatever we can. It gets a lot of attention everywhere it goes. People love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely adore driving it.
I'd love a go at some point.
We'll do a track day or something. We'll get
Yeah.
people in it.
But what other projects exactly have we got lined up?
So I think there's the other two big ones, aren't there?
Which one
Yeah.
should we talk about first?
I mean, we've discussed the
Ma-
Mazda briefly.
Should we go back to the Mazda then?
let's go back
Yeah.
to the Mazda first.
We've
So-
mentioned the Mazda briefly. We have an MX-5 from what year
It's
again?
the 2002
Yeah.
MV2 chassis. So this car's my baby mainly.
This is where the name for the team
This
came from, I
car is
think.
basically my
So-
pet project. So my engineering work goes on this quite often.
So it is
a picture will appear here
Yeah.
somewhere. I visited Donington last year.
it is Sakura the MX-5.
It is Sakura.
Yes,
yeah.
It's basically the team namesake.
Right now, it doesn't have an engine in, but
Or a
that's
gearbox.
or a gearbox, but that
So
will change.
That's the YouTube video that we filmed but haven't put out yet, as we explained.
Yeah.
We'll get to it eventually. So basically, that car finished the 2023 time attack, our little season. So we did a couple of rounds, and the first thing that we did at the end of that was went, my God, this is slow. Like at Donington, which is a relatively fast track, it doesn't get to 100 miles an hour.
It was so
It's quite
slow.
depressing
It was
seeing
also
it go down the
like-
straight.
It was so
I
slow.
did math calcs for the power it had, because I know the frontal area, I know what the drag's like. And it ended up being mathematically significant to 0.01 of a G, which is a bit depressing.
What were you
frankly.
going to say, Aaron?
I was going to say, because like from a spectator's point of view, it was one of the only things that didn't make any noise as it drove past along
Yeah,
the
It was
track.
slightly
It
depressing.
was a stock 1.6, which is not.
If you've
known
ever been
for
to any
that
time
power.
tech things, you're probably aware of the big exhausted engines blowing
Lots
up
of
and-
angry things.
Not quite literally, but a lot of noise.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
This
stuff.
is not one of those cars.
Yeah, the
So-
Sakura went past basically
No.
silently.
So what's
so it
the
was-
plan that we have?
So it was, Jesus Christ, this is slow. So there's what everyone else would do, which is turbocharge them. Those engines took turbos really well. They were originally built as turbo engines.
That's
so rally
boring.
engines.
That's really boring.
Now it's being at us. I sat there and I think I woke up one morning at uni and went, no, that's boring. And this was after buying the turbo I was going to use as well.
So what idea did we have, James?
So, I've been looking at rotaries for a bit too long, and you can probably see where I'm going with this. So, we can't afford a 13B REW, which is the one that you find in the FD RX-7, for example, the famous one. So, I got what we could afford, which was a 13B MSP, which is the engine out of an RX-8, along with a gearbox that's suitable for that engine. We can't reuse the old one; it wouldn't fit the bolt patterns wrong. So we're going to shoehorn that in after I figure out how to get it in, because the exhaust wants to try and live in the front right frame rail. Eventually that all gets sorted.
Packaging issues will be sorted eventually.
Yeah.
It's something we're really, really good at and really hot on, so we'll figure something out. It also makes it really easy to work on, or as easy as you can get away with. Then all
we'll
of the aero
continue.
will be redone, because the main problem it had was it didn't have enough rear downforce. I entered old hairpin and could do old hairpin at something akin to 85 miles an hour, which is basically the top speed of the car practically.
Yeah.
speaking.
And is fast in time attacks.
That's categorically not hanging around,
No.
really, which is surprising based on how simple the aero is.
Especially given the fact that our custom-made wing came off 3 times during the run.
No, it only came off once.
Yeah.
It was a bit sketchy, but it did
Yeah.
the job.
But
It
the
wasn't
the big front air dam and the splitter worked well.
Worked really well, better than it had any
I
right to.
mathed it out and it was 200 to 250 kilos of downforce. I think partly because I did my homework a lot.
We have a plan for the rear end of the car that
The whole
I
car has
that
a-
I came up
Yeah,
with.
some of it was you.
So again, I have to elaborate and say that I am not an engineer. I have to stress
he's
this.
a failed zoologist.
I'm a failed biologist. So I messaged James one night and said, and I can't even remember what I said, but I said, how does this work? And you said, why do you want to know? So I typed a very short sentence and he said, join the voice call now. I need
so we
to
have to see
discuss
this. We have, because we all live in weird places, so like
Yeah.
Matt lives here, I live in Hereford or Oxford, depending on if I'm a uni or not.
We're
It's wanted.
all over
We're
the
all
place.
over the place.
So-
None of this is even in Ireland.
So James said, get in the voice call now. I need to hear what you're cooking.
Yeah, on the TSE Discord server.
So
We don't have Slack or like Teams.
No,
We
we're
don't-
very
We
professional.
don't need that.
We
Discord.
don't care.
Especially- yeah.
It's so Eric and I can spam our soundboards and annoy us
If-
and annoy
if-
everybody.
If the FIA can run endurance and Formula One events through a Discord,
It's good
we
enough
can, we
for
can
us.
run our races.
So I joined the
Love
voice
European
call.
Le Mans and the Wacker run.
Exactly.
It's great.
So I joined the voice call and told James what I was saying, and he said, "How the hell did you think of that?" And I said, the most terrifying words I think you've ever heard out of my mouth, which are, it just seemed like common sense for something that probably a lot of your uni cohort wouldn't have come up with.
Yes, I imagine.
So I'm just there thinking, well, this is common sense. So we have a plan for the rear end.
Yeah, the
is
whole
a long
all
and short
of,
of it.
and front end will probably be done something akin to a Corvette C5R. So
Yes.
you have a split front clam, so the whole you could lift off the front what would be the bonnet, and you can get to everything.
I'm scared to mention these two words because I think James might have a bit of a moment. But the air jacks and the air
I
lawns.
eventually want them very badly.
James really likes.
I would
them.
do unspeakable things for them. If anyone has them, please give me them.
But we won't spoil it too
Yeah,
much.
we won't
because
spoil
one-
too much as to what we're doing.
One,
with
we
the
want to
Mazda.
keep a few secrets, and also we want it to
Yeah.
be a nice big reveal. But
Yes.
when the Mazda is done, it will make a wonderful noise
Angry Hornet.
and go very, very fast in the corners and on the
I
straights.
think when I
Yeah.
lap time simmed that the total improvement was over 10 seconds every track,
We'll leave it there, I think.
which is a lot.
So,
We'll-
so
we'll
still
leave it
not
at
quite
that.
Gobstopper 3,
No,
but
but-
for an MX-5.
It's our Gobstopper 3.
But
It's
really
Gobstopper
rather-
2.5.
Really rather fast for the power level it is.
What other projects do we have to work on?
So-
Gobsakura 1.
Gobsacker 1, do not, please.
So the MX-5's like our baby, I guess.
Yeah,
It's like our main
that's our long-term project.
That's
What else do we
That's
have?
basically our mad side project. The other thing we have is
My
your full buyer.
my Sports 1000
Yes.
prototype. So, for anyone who doesn't know, well, you won't know this about me. My favourite class in all
Unless
of
you
British
already know him.
Yes, my favourite class in all of Club Motorsport is Sports 1000, which are essentially wingless sports prototypes with a 1 litre motorbike engine in them. And they're absolutely fantastic because they run on quite narrow semi-slicks.
They're pretty cool.
They're still very fast in club motorsport class sort of terms, in that sort of relative field. But they're also sort of on the edge enough that you're kind of dancing with it. They feel very retro, very like late 60s, early 70s sports
70s
prototype.
style.
Experimental era
Very, very.
stuff, yeah.
Often when I'm driving mine, my head starts imagining I'm on the Targa Florio in a 908, that kind of thing. Nowhere near that level of pace or power, but it feels that kind of similar.
We
Yeah.
feed his delusions of grandeur occasionally.
So I raced that car in 21, as I mentioned earlier, and it ended with a not insignificant fire at Brands Hatch. Yes, we have a lovely photo from Jonathan Elsey Photography, and that the car was fixed and prepared that winter.
Were you fixed and prepared?
My race kit was signed off
Yes.
as not being melted.
Well,
so
that's
that
what
was
it.
on
Well,
fire.
it did its job.
I
so-
was on, actually at that event I was on oxygen for 2 hours. It wasn't necessary,
Well,
but,
yeah, but-
it's a precautionary thing of if there is a fire, they go and put you on oxygen for a couple of hours just to make sure there isn't any
Monoxide,
carbon
yeah.
monoxide in the
You were
system.
fine as the main.
I was
thing.
completely fine.
The picture's really cool.
Yeah, I was completely and utterly fine. It was a small split in a fuel line. There was some pressure issue somewhere that was causing one of the lines to bulge. It then split, sprayed some fuel into the very hot engine bay, which then caused a fire. And it didn't. The only thing it really actually took with it was anything rubber and electrical. So it took. So the reason why I actually pulled over was because all of the electrics just suddenly died. The engine bay had actually been on fire for about 2 laps, with the guy behind me frantically waving at the pit lane, going, "This guy's on fire." He sent me the onboard footage. It was quite funny.
That's hilarious.
But then I pulled over because everything turned off suddenly because the fire had eaten through the wiring harness, so it just turned
I
off.
was like, why doesn't my engine
And
work?
then,
No way!
and then as I was rolling to a stop next to the marshal's post, this bright orange flame just appeared in the left of my peripheral vision.
So imagine you're like, oh, that's the
Oh,
problem.
there
I
we
should
go.
Get out now.
So we have this basically gutted spire,
Well, no,
effectively.
so it
was
was
it gutted?
So it, no,
Oh,
so
no, it got rebuilt.
It was
Yeah.
it was rebuilt.
It was.
over the winter in preparation for the 22 season. That then, for family and financial reasons, never happened.
And if memory serves, was that the point where we had the funny world event?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no, we've already had the Funny World event. That was 2020.
Good
point,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're already after that. So I'd raced F1000s
Yeah,
through
good point.
through the Funny World event.
We're
Then
not
so,
allowed to say that on
yeah.
YouTube.
So for family and financial reasons, the 2022 season and the 23 season haven't happened. However, we have been informed that for the 24 season, we will probably get the funding and the support to run the car,
Which is
So
really cool. So,
essentially,
exciting.
the plan will be to run that Spire as a client car. So we will be paid to run the car and for me to drive it, obviously, in the Sports 1000 Championship. We're hoping to also probably do, depending on other things, the prototype class of Time Attack.
Yeah, possibly.
That would be really cool.
yeah.
I think.
Some hill climbs, some sprints.
Bits and pieces,
We're
basically.
fortunate that because it's closed wheel, unlike what I'd raced previously, which were open wheel single seaters. There's a lot more freedom of what we can enter it in. So hill climbs are completely viable. Sprints are completely viable. Things like the plum pudding races and the Burkitt 6 hour are
Yeah,
completely
you've
doable.
got a few options.
So that car's going to need a proper refresh now. So it was rebuilt and fixed. However, since then, it has been sat in a garage in what can only be described as a large building site. That
Yeah,
is,
it's sort of just been collecting dust.
it's my dad's house has been under renovation for a while, and the car's just been sat there, essentially in the builder's workshop, getting covered in dust and having things resting on it and so on. So it's completely filthy.
The bodywork's not great.
Yeah, bits of the fiberglass have been mangled and damaged by tools falling on it and stuff. So it'll need a big overhaul this winter. We'll probably do some upgrades to it at the same time because
It's one of those cases of, well, we're rebuilding it, we might as well
because we have a lot of things that we would love to do to that car, and in Sports 1000 in general, we have a lot.
About that one.
Yes,
Too-
We have some other projects which we will not
We have
discuss
some
on
stuff in
there.
the back.
but there's a lot of stuff we would like to do around Sports 1000. A lot of ideas we have. So we're not just gonna run the car. We're going to develop the car. Use it as a bit of a test bed for anything we do in the future.
Yeah, I think I'd have a fit if it was, yes, we'll just run it as it is.
Yeah.
I know.
It takes me all of 5 seconds to start going, how could we go faster?
So, because luckily we have the freedom to do that, we will develop it, we will work
Yeah,
on
there's
it,
a bunch of development freedom, so.
and we'll run it in anything and everything we can. But the main priority is a full competitive season of the Sports 1000 Championship next year.
Yeah, ideally.
Cool.
Perfect.
Talking of Time Attack, just for a sec, I have an impromptu topic courtesy of John, our lead electrical engineer.
Off script. Oh
Yeah,
no.
Off script,
That's my
because the
main
topic has just been confirmed in the last couple of minutes. The Yokohama tyres are appointed of the control tyre from 2029.
Yes, so
I'm going to give my opinion on
So
that.
we
Give a brief opinion.
I did hear about this early because it was mentioned in the drivers' briefing
Yeah.
yesterday morning that the Yokohama people were coming over and signing the contract. So Yokohama will be the tyre
of
sort-
choice.
Yeah, but
Most
the
likely
the-
to be A52.
my
expectation
it is the AO52 is the mandated tyre
The
for.
AO52 has a decent history at this point. It was the World Times, I believe it's the current one of the World Times tyres as well.
Yeah, the important thing. Well, I say the most important thing about it because tyres are tyres, and if you're forced to run a certain tyre, you're forced to run a certain tyre, and that's we kind of have to we have to live in that world.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that the deal means that we're able to get them heavily discounted.
Ideally so, yeah.
yeah.
I assume
But they are, so they're being supplied through Teguara, our favourite people. Good pause. But they are being supplied at a very heavy discount. So
I do appreciate them at least sponsoring a lot of stuff. I think it does allow a lot of championships to exist with
Yes.
good parts,
Yeah.
supplies, and so on.
So that for things like Sakura and so on in the future, that probably makes running a whole season a bit easier in
It
the sense
does,
that tyres
yeah.
are less expensive.
Depends. Yeah, we'll see.
The only problem is it leaves us with a T70 on Nankangs,
It's our one event off.
and an MX-5 on Nankangs.
That's a three event. There are 2 events in the test session.
We'll find a use for them. 100%.
At the very worst, like I in my case, I would go, okay, we'll run them as test tires.
Exactly.
I can do a lot of. In my case, I'd be going, okay, I know these tires are consistent control variable. So
We thought we may as well mention it. It's just come from
I'd say
off the press.
honestly, the only annoying thing with it, from my perspective, is that because, as I mentioned just now, we have plans to run our sports prototype in the Sports 1000 Championship. That's kind of its home, and Time Attack.
Different range.
Originally,
we'll have a planning meeting on that one. I think.
Sports 1000 at the moment currently mandates Nankang AR1 tyres. So our plan was, we'll just keep the AR1s on and run it in that. But now, if we're being
we could do a season of SRE.
Could do a whole season of SRE, but it wouldn't be the same.
It
would
wouldn't. No, I agree with you.
We want to do a Jimmy Broadbent and collect a prototype title at the end of the season for being the one car in prototype class.
True.
Love you, Jimmy. I know you're not going to watch this, but love you anyway.
What if though?
What if the great Jimmy Broadbent watches 4 Muppets in a shed? Well, he came from a shed.
Well, what do you know? So, but yeah,
we're a little bigger than his. So.
True. We thought we may as well mention the Yoko situation.
Doesn't hugely surprise me.
It's whatever in the end.
A bit, and the Yokohama's
Any other
really
opinion
popular.
stuff on the matter at all?
Honestly, from purely if I'm ignoring any particular bias out towards costs and so on, those tyres have proven in Time Attack at this point in a bunch of different countries.
Yeah.
They're a really solid choice.
And from what I've heard just yesterday when I was talking to Andy, who's the Time Attack organiser, Yoko are very invested in the series.
That's good.
They love their Time Attack.
They love their Time Attack.
They've sponsored Time Attack times before.
What Andy told me is that they are actually already producing a huge batch of tyres to be ready for pre-season testing for UK Time Attack next year.
That's good, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
The post that John has sent us said that they're going to be mandated from January of next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
so
sense,
for next
yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Anything else we want to discuss briefly?
I don't think
think
there's any more discussions,
No.
but I think there's one thing that we should mention.
We
and
should
that's
mention, yes.
a
all
thank
of
you
this.
to our good
Yes.
sponsors.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
Let's
to our
run
people.
through everything. Don't stand up because you'll be out of
so
frame.
we'll start with our lovely teamwear that you can see us all wearing here. This arrived this week, courtesy of Logo Me Up.
Only a couple of items on camera. There's the t-shirts. Actually, I think there's a couple of types of t-shirts. There's
I've
big
got
oversized
the,
ones.
we've got
sports ones here.
We've got a few different t-shirts. We've got hoodies.
Yeah, I mean the hoodies, which are
We've
really
got
comfy.
we've got beanies. We've got baseball caps.
2 colours of beanie.
Yes.
We're both black and pink.
There's
And
hats.
I won't stand up, but I'll give us a quick spin round.
And I love this very deeply.
There we go. Oh, everything's going wrong. Everything's
By the
going
camera.
wrong.
A quick spin around. So
Do a lat spread.
no, but these.
Thanks to Kona for that one.
So our kit was supplied to us by Logo Me Up, who were kind enough to give us a very much needed discount in exchange for running their logos
I
just
have a
there.
hat on now as well.
You
But
do.
Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
So-
the white version of the beanie.
All bought through Logo Me Up. The design was sort of our own, obviously very very primitive design, just a black shirt with
Keep it simple.
logos
I
on.
think.
But
Feels nice to be in team kit, you know.
we're
It
fortunate.
feels really cool.
Yeah, it felt really nice to see us all in kit. So we've got
The
obviously
pictures are fantastic.
obviously
we should
our
put the picture
logo.
up of the Donington little.
Yeah.
The one
That would be
screenshot.
fun.
Yeah,
Right,
but obviously we've got our logo here, and then we've got Team GK Fit. So that is Grant, who is a absolutely fantastic personal trainer. He was just my own personal trainer for a while last year, and then I reached out to him and said, "Would you be interested in giving me a discount?" I was being a bit cheeky. I was like, "Would you give us a bit of a discount if we promoted you on our kit and on our cars and so on?" And he was so lovely to go, "Oh, I'll just give all of you, some PT support,
Free PT support.
free PT
Yeah, it's
support."
really
So
So
James and I know are
Really-
making use of
Yeah,
that.
massively generous of them.
Yeah,
So-
so super big ups to him, and he's doing a really good job with me at the moment.
And me
so,
as well. I
yeah.
think the 120 lunges were a decision I regret.
True.
The stairs hurt for days.
he's pushing us, and we all really appreciate
Yeah.
it. We all really appreciate the support, and
We're bullying the rest of our team to try and get in on that.
Yeah.
I haven't signed up yet, but I
and
must do it.
hopefully the progress that we make this year and next year will be enough advertisement in itself to push others to going to him and seeing that the sort of that level of fitness is helpful, even at club
And
motorsport.
for reference, just a little thing for that, I do all of it out of my bedroom, which hasn't got a lot of space with just weights, and I notice a big difference. So even if you're really tight on space, you will figure out ways to make that work for you.
And then the sort of Mishimoto, one of our more sort of like, I guess, minor sponsors at the moment. So we joined
A
them.
bit general, I guess.
Yeah.
Team
So we joined them through their affiliate program, relatively easy to sign up for, and then I kind of got into a haggling phase with them, and I was like, well, we're making custom teamwear. If we get your logo put on our teamwear, can we have a slightly bigger affiliate program? So initially it was a certain percentage, we don't need to go into the exact figures, but it was a certain percentage discount. They bumped up the percentage discount a little bit more, so when we're getting radiators for either my personal Beetle build, which isn't really worth talking about on
Cover that
here,
another time, I think.
things for Sakura, even if we decide to get some bits and pieces for the T70 or the Spire, we get a good discount off them for their really good cooling products.
The gear knob, which works absolutely, it works so well. On
The
that
gear
car.
knob in the
It's
T70
perfect.
was a really, really good choice. But
It's a
then
good impulse one.
our
The big
main,
one.
our main big sponsor, so
Two big ones, I'd say.
So cryogenics, as they say here, deep sub-zero processing. So it's an area of, I think, sort of like
Metallurgy, metals,
and
materials.
technological development that hasn't really been explored in club motorsport much
It's
yet.
specifically in this country, so cryo treating, especially in the States, is very popular, and there's a good amount of success with it on a lot of different things.
Well, you can buy like cams for Mustangs in America,
Which are cryo-treated,
and they literally
yeah.
just say like cryo-treated cam for like a Mustang, like a 2015.
We
Mustang.
won't go into the full spec of how it
I
works.
think it's one of those
but,
things
yeah.
that deserves its own video at some point.
We'll go into it
Yeah.
at some point on the
It will
channel.
probably be likely quite dense and nerdy, so probably a me video.
But we'll do some more stuff about them and with them in the future.
Yeah.
But it's their processes of essentially deep freezing metal components.
in a way that's quite fancy.
It improves lifespans, reduces friction. So
The main things are your wear rate, and it's typically a metal touching component thing. The wear rates go down quite a lot. I've seen like 3 or 4 times increase on brake discs before.
Well, yeah, so that-
so you quite often get little cracks on brake discs. A lot of that goes away because the metal is a lot more consistent. Temperatures go down, really popular on gear sets. I know some very non-motorsport but incredibly high level applications of the technology.
So we thought that, especially in a club level where most people are operating at a budget, if you can cryo freeze your brake discs and then rather than replacing them every winter, replacing them every 4 years, that reduces your running costs quite substantially.
Even if it's I think I worked out, I mathed it out, even if it's every other, you save yourself a load of money.
You save a huge amount of money.
Yeah. So thanks very much to those
There's
guys.
a performance and a budgetary benefit to it.
And
really.
then, as you've seen on the back, we've got our Racing is My Therapy logo. So that is an altered version of a design from Tacona, whose logo is also on the back. We are, I think, sponsor's not the right word. It's more of
I'd say that's probably definition of partnership.
a partnership or a collaboration.
You'll be seeing stuff with Tacona and the
Their channel
T70
as
come out
well.
soon.
Yeah.
Their channel as well as anything in the future, maybe.
Yeah, so we have a T70 video going up with him on his YouTube channel soon. He came over here and visited me, and I drove him around. We got some drone shots, stuff like that.
Super cool stuff.
We'll be doing more stuff with him. He's releasing some clothing with the T70 on, so on his website and his range.
Slightly otherworldly,
There will be ones of the MX-5 when that's done.
That will all be in the description,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
it will be
we'll make it
available.
all when it's available.
Yeah,
Go
all
in
of
the
our
usual
sponsors and things will be done.
Yeah,
You'll be able to find them somewhere in the video.
I think
go in the usual places.
Tacona is sort of an important message about getting people
Yes.
talking about men's mental health and using cars as the kind of the catalyst to get people talking when they might not necessarily want to normally.
I have a very personal relationship with both mental health related issues and motorsport, so it's.
I think a lot of the team has.
We all
It's very close to my heart.
we all take it very seriously, and we're all a bit fed up with the kind of the old boys club of motorsport just being like, oh, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. It's
I
like,
have a massive grievance with that.
Yes, you do.
You can talk about that stuff, and cars are a perfectly good way of talking about it.
Yeah.
So he runs cars and coffee events. I'm sure we'll get down to some of those at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to.
We'll have him on here at some point.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully we can,
Well,
yeah.
We'll figure out where he'll sit, because there's any force.
and he's
spots.
just
We'll get rid of Eric, true.
and he's just started doing some racing, so I'm sure we can get him on track
Yes,
with
I
us
saw
at
that
some
this
point.
morning, I think.
Yes,
Very good.
His-
Didn't know that. But
his-
Yeah, this morning.
his MS UK getting started pack has just arrived in the post, so I'm sure we'll be helping him on
There's a
track
little
soon.
video
Good
as
man.
well. There's a little video at Donington actually.
Yes, there is. So go and watch that
Yes.
after
Yes,
this.
please do. He's worth the time.
And I suppose if we haven't got anything else to say, then
And thanks very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will just say that if you have enjoyed this video, this content, if you like us for some reason,
I'm not sure why you would. We're weird.
or any of the other stuff that we have done or are going to do, please give the usual like, subscribe, comment about Eric's hat, if you wish to, and we will see you on future videos like this and on other videos of us messing around with cars and going racing in the future.
And if you want to keep up with us on a bit more up to date version, you can follow our Instagram or Twitter,
Which again will drop in the
All in the normal places.
all in the normal places.
We
You
do
can
have
find all of the
we do have a
description.
LinkedIn if you're feeling more professional about it.
I rarely am.
No,
Matthew is extremely active on the LinkedIn.
He runs all of it, so I don't have to.
I'm
I build
true.
race cars. He does everything
Yes,
else.
I'm a business graduate, so the
I am not.
LinkedIn is
Color
my
young
playground.
graduate, we like to call
Yes,
it.
yes.
Meanwhile, I'm a motorsport engineering student, so
Without further ado, though, I think that's everything for now.
I think that's enough for this
Yeah.
episode of Lubricant Lounge, I think.
Yes.
Wow.
For God's sake.
So yeah, thanks very much for watching as always.
yeah,
And
thank you for joining us on the
Yeah.
Lubricant Lounge.
we'll hopefully make this a semi-regular occurrence after every event whenever we have stuff to
Every
talk
time
about.
we've done something somewhat major and important, I
Cool.
think.
So we will see you all again in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
See you
Bye.
later.
Goodbye.
Bye.